Welcome to the EuroPython podcast. This is episode 258. What goes into supporting over 650,000 projects and nearly 1 million users of the Python package index? This week on the show, we speak with Maria Ashna about her first year as the inaugural PyPI Support Specialist. Maria has a varied background in creative arts and neuroscience. She decided to apply for the PyPI support position, defying common misconceptions about who can take on roles inside the Python Software Foundation and imposter syndrome. Her recent talk at PyCon US 2025 and EuroPython 2025 is about her experiences in the role. She describes tackling the backlog of account recovery and PEP 541 requests. We also discuss PyPI community and company organizations. All right, let's get started. The EuroPython podcast is a weekly conversation about using Python in the real world. My name is Christopher Bailey, your host. Each week, we feature interviews with experts in the community and discussions about the topics, articles, and courses found at realpython.com. After the podcast, join us and learn real-world Python skills with a community of experts at realpython.com. Hey, Maria, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm very excited to talk to you. One of the things that I wanted to discuss briefly is we had like a little conversation before we started about us being kind of creative people that have gotten into the technical world.
Mm-hmm.
I thought as a fellow creative person, I was wondering like what led you into learning Python?
That's a great question. So I have a pretty diverse background. I have grown up loving both arts and sciences. And my dad actually used to be a computer engineer.
Oh, cool.
And because of that, we were probably one of the first families in our block that had an old school Apple II Mac, the one that looks like a little square.
Yeah.
So I grew up working with computers, just tinkering around with stuff from a very young age. And fast forward to college time, I decided I wanted to major in neuroscience and theater because I love both performing and, of course, love everything about the brain. I think my love for the brain came from the fact that I have a brother who has cerebral palsy and epilepsy. So I think, growing up, watching him go through that made me very curious about the brain.
Yeah.
And a tiny little fun fact next to that is I've grown up all around the world. And growing up, I used to be a child actor on television and film.
Oh, wow.
So I think my love of both arts and sciences, theater and neuroscience, came from that. So I decided from a very young age that, when I grow up, I want to do something with both at the same time.
Yeah.
much against the advice of a lot of people around me, because of course, when you tell people, what do you want to do? Oh, I want to be a neuroscientist and a performer at the same time. You get a lot of puzzled looks from people. You think, oh, this person doesn't know what they want to do. Oh,
these are parallel things that do not intersect.
But the funny thing is, for my brain, it makes perfect sense. Even though, colloquially people say we have a left brain and a right brain.
Sure.
It's true. But as a neuroscience person, it's just all one brain. It's just, the neuronal pathways and connections that you have that are more important. But I know this about myself, that I definitely need both things in my life to feel balanced. So to me, it didn't seem like a very, opposites. To me, it seemed like, oh, it's perfectly complementary to me. So fast forward even a little bit further, when I was in college, I, of course, needed a job.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't go to college, couldn't afford college otherwise, even with scholarships and everything. So I decided to work at a brain research lab. And I noticed that folks, they were using a lot of programming stuff and software to do brain image analysis. And we weren't yet using Python.
Okay.
That's coming up. But I got interested in doing that as well. And I thought, oh, this reminds me of when I was a kid and when I was in high school and I was tinkering around with, very, very basic HTML and
Yeah.
JavaScript like back in the day. And I decided, after college, I'm just going to get more into it. And I started working in not tech. I worked with a lot of kind of the legacy companies. Well, now they're considered legacy, but at the time, like HP
Okay.
and Thomson Reuters, doing tech stuff with them, doing like database admin and software application stuff.
Okay.
But I have the heart of an artist, but the mind of a scientist. So I always wanted to get a PhD in neuroscience. That was always kind of my dream, do science research and figure stuff out. So I always wanted to go back to school, wanted to go to grad school. So when an opportunity came for me to get my master's, I decided to move to California. I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico at the time.
Okay.
So I decided to get my master's in information systems and technology. And the very first, we're required to dive deep into programming there as part of our program. And the class I took was a Python programming language.
Nice.
That was my very first introduction to Python programming. And I had a really cool programming teacher. And he was so in love with programming. He made programming in Python and pretty much anything sound like this really fun
Yeah.
thing. I've had, programming teachers before in certain classes in college and things like that, but nobody seemed as enthusiastic about it as this professor. Shout out to Dr. Dodds. I don't know if he's listening, but
Yeah.
so I thought, wow, this is something really cool. And Python was also very complementary to a programming language that I was used to, which is MATLAB, which is used a lot in scientific computing. So fast forward a couple more years, when I went back to grad school to get my second master's in neuroimaging and neuroscience and neuroinformatics, we heavily used Python and MATLAB and R to work on a lot of projects. And, in science research, open source projects are the way that labs run because labs have a very shoestring budget, but they have all these things that need to be done and they need to do. So yeah, that's how I came across Python. Long story short.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. I feel that teachers don't get enough credit, especially the ones that are so exciting and
exactly.
inspiring,
Yeah.
for students these days. I like talking to authors very often, and they're fun to talk about, the subject of Python because they've sat and they've thought about it so much. But part of that also is like, how can I make this interesting for my students? I always talk about like,
Hmm.
who's your like intended audience and who are you trying to inspire with
Yeah.
this stuff? So that's really kind of cool to hear.
Yeah.
So I came across you through a friend. They had mentioned that you had a really great talk at PyCon this year.
Oh, thanks.
Do you want to just maybe mention a little bit about what it's about? And I know you're kind of got another crack at it coming up soon. So
Yes. Yes.
depending when this episode comes out. So yeah.
Yeah. So the talk that I gave at PyCon, and I'll be giving the same talk at EuroPython that's coming up. The title of my talk is based on my work at the Python Software Foundation. I'm currently at the Python Software Foundation. I'm the inaugural PyPI Support Specialist.
Yeah.
And PyPI is the Python Packaging Index. So my talk was pretty much my first year at PSF and what it was like being the inaugural PyPI Support Specialist, what it was like dealing with the significant backlog that PyPI had regarding account recovery and PEP 541 requests and file limit requests, mostly account recovery and PEP 541 requests. So my talk was regarding how I tackled those backlogs and what else is coming up in store for PyPI users, like PyPI orgs and features that could be helpful, and also documentation for account recovery and PEP 541 and our processes. And
Yeah.
my talk is also, it's titled a pep talk, pun intended.
Yeah.
Pun intended, adventures as the inaugural PyPI support specialist. And I say pep talk because, a big chunk of my talk is regarding, how even if it's exciting to be the first, it's exciting to be the inaugural PyPI Support Specialist or the inaugural something. When you're an explorer and you're the first coming on this uncharted territory, it might seem it seems so cool and fun, like, wow, there's so much vast lands in front of me.
Yeah.
But it also comes with challenges. How can I take the next step? What is my next step? And is the next step going to be a quicksand, or is the next step going to be some kind of fun oasis in this vast uncharted land? So a big part of my talk is also kind of this pep talk, what to do when you're the first. And
Yeah.
one of the things I talk about is, let curiosity be your compass. Let curiosity be your compass. And as a preternaturally curious person, ask questions, because asking questions, being curious is the way to move forward. So that's pretty much what my talk was about.
Yeah. Well, there's about 10 different things that we can kind of unpack from that.
Yes.
Maybe I'll start in reverse if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah.
One of the things that you discuss in that is embracing asking questions. And I am
Yes.
definitely one of those people also. I worked in the corporate environment,
Yes.
a few different places, banks and things like that. And I would
Mhm.
go to like training sessions. And I think part of it is also this empathy I would have with this person who's trying to teach
Mhm.
us and instruct us. But they'd be like, okay, any questions? And it'd be like,
Crickets.
yeah. And I just felt so terrible for those people. And I did have questions, but I knew that the people around me had questions and they were
Yeah,
not
exactly.
asking them. And it was making
Exactly.
me crazy. Like, and so I would just start. And I always kind of wonder about fostering that culture. And it sounds like the PSF has that culture, or at least different parts of it, which is really great. So maybe we could talk about that a little bit. Like, what do you mean by like embracing this asking questions, even when they may seem unwelcome, which is another kind of twist on that. Yeah.
I think what I meant by that is, I think oftentimes, when you work in open source and, somebody who used to be on the other side of open source, mostly just, as a user, not really on the maintaining side,
Right.
coming onto this other side, I think, I always approach things like a scientist in terms of, curiosity.
Yeah.
So when, oftentimes I think when questions are asked, if there's no answer, I understand, or at least my perspective. A lot of times when folks in tech, having a definitive answer or having, something linear and definitive is the goal, is what's happening. And if that's not achieved, some folks might see that as quote unquote a failure. But from my side,
Yeah.
I don't see it as a failure. I see that as an exciting thing. I see that, okay,
Yeah.
if there's a stopgap there, why? Oh, why is A not happening? Oh, is A happening? Okay, why isn't B happening? So I think it's maybe a slightly different culture change, I would say. The way that perhaps folks who have a traditional tech background ask questions versus somebody who has a diverse set of backgrounds, including tech, asks questions. So I think the unwelcome isn't so much, you can't ask questions. I think I often felt like, why am I asking this question? Why are you asking this question? Well, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
asking this question because it will help us move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Like the feeling welcome to ask the questions is
Yeah.
part of it, but also just the I don't know is
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
and then
Yeah.
having people around you that are welcome to the idea of saying, let's go find out together, or
Exactly.
let's try to like, solve things, these different things. So that is a big part of it. I think that, yeah. So that it sounds
Mm-hmm.
like you've found that sort of culture.
Exactly. I mean, that's what I also mentioned in my talk, that, I mentioned that I don't know is a beautiful phrase,
Yeah.
because that means, to me, I don't know doesn't mean, oh my God, panic, panic, panic.
Right.
I don't know means let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Let's figure it out. Let's discover this. Let's explore this problem.
Right.
Let's explore the solution to this problem. And let's keep asking the questions. Let's keep building the direction using the compass of curiosity.
Yeah.
If there wasn't a process that wasn't there before,
Yeah.
Say for PEP 541, we have a lot of issues cases we use GitHub as our issue tracker, where a lot of the name request, package requests don't really fall under the PEP 541 preview, and
Yeah, that
there's
whole
sort of
thing
an
seems rather nebulous in the sense that
some
it's like there's just so many different kind of funky situations that can happen
correct,
there. So maybe we should
correct,
drill into that a
yeah.
little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it's sort of like they're in this Venn diagram of PEP 501, but they belong to two different circles. And
Yeah.
in the middle is PEP 501, and the other, what do we do with the other sides of the circles? So, for example, I'm working with PyPI admins on developing a process for how do we efficiently resolve those issues that also make our PyPI users happy, but also
Right.
adhere to security standards.
Yeah.
Because security is of paramount importance, of course, everywhere, but more so in open source.
Yeah.
Because
And something as large as Python. Yeah.
exactly, and PyPI, I mean, we are close to 1 million users. As of
Wow.
this
Yeah.
recording, who knows? Maybe it'll exceed the 1 million mark by the time this gets out, which will be amazing. And that's the beauty of open source. It's, to me, it democratizes tech in a way that perhaps closed source does not. Anybody around the globe can create a program or create something and upload, but that also creates legitimate concerns about security that also needs to be addressed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we kind of dive into PEP 541 a little bit,
Sure.
there's a few different situations there. A lot of it has to do with kind of, I don't know, the different areas of the life cycle of a project.
Yes,
and
correct.
then also the naming of projects and sort of disputes of those things, projects that could be abandoned.
Yes.
And so these are things that are sitting inside this huge repository that is PyPI, this package index, and that predates you coming in at all.
Of
And
course.
a huge part of it is this: you were saying that there's a lot of these requests to address that, and there was like a backlog.
Correct.
And maybe we could talk
Yes.
about that a little bit. Like, okay, what was the backlog? And
Sure.
and then we can talk about maybe solving a couple of. We don't need to solve all the problems in this right now.
Yes,
Yeah.
Rome was not built in a day.
Yeah.
Or destroyed in a day, but
Yeah, it's true.
So prior to me joining as the inaugural PyPI Support Specialist, so the PEP 541, I'm sure there's a link that folks, I'm going to give the TLDR, I call it the TLDR version, as I mentioned in my talk as well now, because if you want some good bedtime reading, you can go to the link of PEP 541 and familiarize yourself.
Which part of the Venn diagram do you want to map
exactly.
into?
Yeah, well, that part I'm not sure existed, but the way it existed is still
Right.
sufficient, for some bedtime reading.
Yeah.
But PEP 541, the backlog was a year and 4 months behind.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a long time. You even forget that you sent something in.
Yeah. And so what PEP 541 deals with is, say you have a package called EuroPython, and you worked on it maybe 2015, and you haven't made any updates since the pandemic, 2020, beginning of the pandemic, and you moved on from it, and now say one of your co-hosts wants to take ownership of the package because they either want to maintain it or replace it. And again, TLDR version, there are different criterias, if you want to maintain or replace it, versus if your project is abandoned or not. So in our example, say your project is abandoned because it's a legit project, you just haven't made any kind of updates. So then one of your co-hosts would try to contact you, and if you ignored their emails a couple of times, they file a PEP 541 request, and then we go and investigate. We look at the code of your project, to see, is this a legitimate project, or does this fall under the purview of, say, name squatting? Because we've had a lot of those as well, where folks maybe claimed a name, say Ducky, but Ducky has 0 kilobytes. So that,
Yeah.
Ducky
Right.
does not, Ducky is empty. So you can't, it falls on your name squatting pretty much.
Yeah.
And then somebody else wants to use Ducky. Those are easier to resolve because, there's nothing in there. Nobody's going to be, the previous owner of Ducky will not be sad if,
Right.
0 kilobytes is transferred away. But say for your project, EuroPython, you call it EuroPython Ducky, just to
Right.
differentiate it.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
yeah, EuroPython Ducky, does it have a lot of uploads or downloads? When was the last update? What does it look like? So based on all of these criteria and some others, and if, say, you decide to hand it over to your co-host, then it's a happy case.
Okay.
We hand it over to one of your co-hosts to take over the project. And again, the PEP specifies that nothing can be done against the wishes of the owner. So if you decide, no, I want to keep EuroPython Ducky for me,
Yeah.
then of course, then it's a no. No matter how much more amazingly your co-hosts can take care of the project, when the owner says no, the owner says no. So there are all these different criteria and things that go in,
Yeah.
which is why, resolving a PEP 541 issue should and does take longer compared to, say, an account recovery request, because you have to wait.
Lots of parties, lots of emails going back and forth.
Yeah, and also time frame to make sure, I do the care, and folks have been volunteers who have been involved in it. They did it with great care as well. So it does take time. So I think a combination of all of that, not having anybody in this position
Yeah.
actively going through the backlog, in addition to the time that it takes to resolve these issues, I think brought up the big chunk of it. But I'm happy to say whenever this will be out, the backlog is now current.
Yeah.
So triage time before, first triage time is now average a week, as opposed to,
Wow.
a 1 year or 4 months. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a pretty significant percentage difference. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my talk, if people are interested, they can go see it. It's somewhere on YouTube, either on PyCon's channel.
Yeah. I'll provide a link there. Yeah.
Yeah. I use this meme of a Hello Kitty taking a baseball bat to a computer lit on fire as my reaction to when I saw the backlog amount, because I first, felt this sense of pride after completing the account recovery backlog, which was, I believe, 5 months behind. So, and that had challenges as well. But after completing that, after seeing the PEP 541 backlog, I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
this is a mountain as well. But I'm glad that it's current, and glad that more processes are coming in the way that will hopefully elucidate to our users what goes on. I mean, yes, the PEP is there, but I think that is something also that when I came in as PyPI Support Specialist, part of my focus was creating adequate documentation, both for our internal staff and us, and also for users, to make sure, we're transparent with them. They know what the process is,
Yeah.
what goes on, without of course compromising any kind of security. Yeah.
Yeah. It's time to shine a spotlight on another EuroPython video course. It fits in nicely with the topic this week. It's titled Publishing Python Packages to PyPI. The course is based on an article by Gerana Hiela, and my frequent co-host Christopher Trudeau is the instructor, and he takes you through why packages and virtual environments exist, how to use build systems, what should be the contents of a PyProject.toml file, how to use the build and twine tools, what the flit and poetry packaging tools offer in this process. And most importantly, you'll learn all about the structures of a package and how to upload your own to the PyPI server. I think it's a valuable investment of your time to learn how to share your work using the standard tools within the Python community. And like all video courses on EuroPython, the course is broken into easily consumable sections. Plus, you'll get additional resources and code examples for the techniques shown. All of our course lessons have a transcript, including closed captions. Check out the video course. You can find a link in the show notes, or you can find it using the search tool on realpython.com. So the account stuff Is that a mix of different situations there too? Like you say, account recovery.
Yes.
I'm guessing that could be someone lost their password or somebody else is kind of similar, like maybe taking over the account. I'm not sure if that fits there.
Yes and no. Account recovery, it does deal with a lot of folks who may have lost their two-factor auth app,
Okay.
or they lost their recovery codes, or they want to update their email addresses account. They haven't logged in for a while,
Yeah.
or they haven't set up two-factor auth and they can't log in at all,
Right.
because their emails are unverified. So that's the gist of what account recovery entails. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we kind of cleaned that issue up too.
Issue up, yeah.
And that's something that is new, partly, I'm not sure how many years ago, but I did have somebody else on to discuss a little bit of this, like the idea that, hey, this two-factor auth needs to be there.
Yes.
It's going to help with some of the bad actors that are out there.
Yes. Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. And I do think, I think that was also part of it. We want to encourage our users standard security practices. GitHub and any other places that deals with open source or any other open source projects, you have to have some kind of MFA or 2FA. So I think it's really great that, even if it maybe caused users a minor inconvenience in the beginning,
Right.
in the short term, but long term, I think users can look back and thank us and say, oh, thank goodness, because it's their security that's also at risk. It's their work. We don't want any bad actors, impersonating users and, say, we don't want anybody impersonating you and putting in malware for real Python Ducky. I mean, I don't know. By the time this goes out, who knows? There might be a lot of claims to the real Python Ducky name. So maybe we need to reserve that name ahead of time.
That's cool. So one of the other things that you've been involved with in PyPI generally is this idea of organizations. And
yes.
I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Like, I guess there's a couple different ways that organizations can kind of happen under PyPI. And in some ways, I think it maybe is helping organize projects or kind of overarching stuff. So maybe just describe that a little bit and what goes into the PyPI organizations.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad you brought that up because we are actually, I'm going to start a little bit from the back in reverse. We are, well, by the time this airs, hopefully there should be a PyPI org outreach campaign that we're doing. We want to hear from the community, both from our community orgs and our company orgs, on what features they wish to see PyPI orgs.
Okay.
And so going back to your question, so again, PyPI orgs originated long before I stepped in, but it had a little hibernation period. I think it was introduced back in 2023.
Okay.
And now it's back up again. So PyPI orgs pretty much helps communities, a little bit larger communities with, say, project management, efficient project management, group management. Again, I think this is going to be our example of the day. Say you're working with real Python Ducky community.
Okay.
Let's do real Python Ducky Snake. Why not?
Okay.
Real Python Ducky Snake, you have a project, and instead of having individual accounts, trying to manage individual accounts who are involved in real Python Ducky Snake, you create a PyPI org with real Python Ducky Snake, and that way you can bring on your users and you can all manage the package in a more efficient way.
Okay.
Group project management. Yeah. And so if for some reason, say, one of your co-hosts leaves real Python Ducky Snake org, you don't have to worry about, transferring their ownership or their credentials. It's already on their the org that you created. And starting the beginning of this year, we also introduced company orgs for a flat fee, just to make sure, PyPI, the resources that PyPI runs on, can continue to be self-servicing, without a lot of downtime.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's pretty much what PyPI orgs right now is, but we want to expand its capabilities. So that's why we're doing the outreach, and we want to know how best can PyPI orgs serve you? What are features that folks would like to see that would be beneficial for their communities, companies, and for their users?
So a normal process prior to what we're talking about with organizations would be an individual creates a project like we were talking about
Yeah.
and posts it. And then if they wanted somebody else to take that over, then we might have to deal with some of the other stuff we were talking
Yeah,
about.
you transfer ownership. Yeah.
Yeah. But the idea with an organization is that a team of people could be in
Exactly.
there, and then we could add
Exactly.
individuals to that team or remove people from that team. And that was
Exactly.
not really as configurable before, but has become a stronger feature over the
Oh,
last, like you said, several years.
we had some community orgs that had signed up in 2023, but now
Okay.
because it's back up and running again, I haven't checked the latest numbers yet, but we have a substantial amount of both community orgs and company orgs
Okay.
that have signed up. And the sign up process is very self-explanatory and easy. But of course, if there's something about, sign up process or any other features that users would like to give feedback on or like to see differently on, that's also why we're doing this outreach.
Yeah, cool. And a company and an organization might have multiple projects that are underneath that purview also. We have a lot of new developers that are visiting, RealPython. They come all from different backgrounds and so forth. And one of the things that I thought you were doing well in your talk, but just generally from, speaking to you before earlier also, is this idea that there is, for a younger developer or somebody who's not as experienced, this nervousness to say, could I put something up on PyPI? And I feel like what you've been trying to evangelize a little bit is like, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
This is possible, that if you
Yeah.
want to have your own project and put it up on PyPI, that's possible. I know there's like a whole documentation for that and so forth. Do you want to talk a little bit about the process of like somebody like, hey, I want to, try to do my first project? I'll include some links for some resources also, but
we have a helpful, I believe it's help.pypi.org. I could be wrong, but we definitely have help docs regarding that. And of course, I'm always looking to improve docs on that. If anything seems nebulous or unclear to either current users or new users. But, one of the reasons that I like working in open source, both before in science research and now, is because, as we were talking about before, open source, it really truly democratizes tech in a way that I don't think closed source projects do. So, PyPI and working with a lot of our users, I've seen projects that were created by, there's obviously folks that are in C Python and folks who are just learning to code their first Hello World or Hello Apple in a boot camp. So PyPI users, I mean, we like I said, we have almost 1 million, and we didn't get to be almost 1 million users by just having quote unquote experts on it. We have diverse range of users, and we welcome that and we want that from different kinds of backgrounds or just as a hobby project, and folks who work with, I encourage anybody to use upload their packages on PyPI if they're first learning Python, and they don't have to be quote unquote what a traditional developer is. You could be a teacher, you could be a chef who's probably trying to make a fun Python program on how to optimize recipes for your restaurant or your food truck, or you could be a performer trying to optimize, where can I do my next gig using Python or PyPI. So I think no matter where somebody is in their programming journey or Python journey or PyPI journey, we encourage folks to be part of our community. We welcome that. Yeah.
Yeah. My co-host, my frequent co-host, Christopher Trudeau, has a variety of projects, and he jokes like he's the main user of these things. And PyPI can be a nice
for now.
Yeah, exactly. He tries to make people aware of them, but they're, if you will, scratching a niche that he has that he thinks other people might, be interested in some ways. So
and
that's why it's there.
Yeah. I mean, for example, I often, when I was first learning Python, and even now, I like to make things regarding things that I'm interested in. I have a variety of interests. I think a lot of times when folks first start to learn programming or Python, anything in general, all these programming videos or books, I've seen this theme. They just teach people things that don't necessarily, you know, apply to a person's everyday life or maybe everyday interest. For example,
Yeah.
I've thought about this, for example, how to do a Fibonacci sequence. I don't care about doing a fracking Fibonacci sequence in Python. I know it's important, but,
Right.
unless you're a mathematician or unless you just love the Fibonacci sequence. But,
Right.
but I think folks should approach learning Python or any programming language as a tool like, oh, I have this thing that's not there that I wish was there.
Right.
Well, maybe go and build it. I like to, I think it's in my bio. I cheekily added it for the speaker bio. I wrote that I'm a Pythonista and fashionista. So one of the Python programs I actually made, it's a very dinky CLI program about, what's my outfit of the day,
Okay.
depending on the weather, depending on my mood, or depending, and I give it like a database of things that I have and input some weather, temperature things, and the program spits out, this is what you should wear, and it so it's something like that. So I think build something that excites you, not and I think that also helps people learn better,
Yeah.
because it gets you to that question thing that we were talking about, gets you really curious. Okay, if I wanted to create some kind of a recipe tracker, or if I wanted to build some kind of whatever wonderful thing that's being happening,
Yeah.
what tools do I do next? I think that as long as something resonates with you more, that will inspire you to learn, be a better learner than say some rote exercise on let's build this graph of something, or the Fibonacci sequence. I swear I don't hate the Fibonacci sequence. I know it's
I get
important,
it. Yeah.
but
I think that's part
it's
of
an
it is
example.
it's like, finding, they don't have to be the biggest problem in the world. They could be a small problem that you have that you want to solve, or you want to solve. I'm the person who I always want to solve problems for others. And so like
Same.
fixing like a little thing. I know that you have this problem all the time, and I found this little solution for you or whatever. Your outfit thing makes me think of all these apps that came out, or kind of early iPhone stuff, like I forget, it's like, do I need a jacket or something like that? Like, what is the weather plan for the day? Like, should I, so that's kind of fun.
And, even, sometimes you might think it's a quote unquote small problem, but to somebody else, it might be a really big problem that they didn't think about. For example, another project that I've been working on in secret because I haven't put it up on my GitHub yet, is forecasting Alzheimer's, or forecasting any kind of brain disorders that are out there. How can I use Python to do that? Because currently there's not kind of a global data on that, at least last time I checked, in one place. I think something like that would be really helpful for researchers, for even public health initiatives. So anything that piques your interest.
Yeah.
And you never know, the way you intended to use your program might be used differently by somebody else. Maybe going back to the outfit picker example, for some people are like, it's just outfits or fashion, whatever. It's not that important. But I had a very, very brief time working as a stylist. And a lot of my clients were folks who were they were trying to figure out their own style according to the gender expression that they identified with. I think for someone like that, an outfit picker would take away a lot of the cognitive load, and worry, so you never know how something you create might be quote unquote a small problem for you, but it could be a life-saving thing for somebody else, or it could be just this communal thing that, you never know. And that's what's the beauty of open source too,
Yeah. I mean, hopefully a lot of programming can be for fun also.
Yes. I think it needs to be. That's also another thing that I don't know why I don't know if it's a media thing or if it's also maybe somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy thing. There's this seriousness around being a coder, being a developer, I'm wearing my hoodie, I don't want anybody to see my face. I'm a secret genius, but I'm socially
my computer
inept.
equipment is black.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of okay. Yeah, but I think, we need to, and I was actually thinking about this. We need to encourage and bring it. I'm not saying it's not everywhere, but I think we need to encourage folks to bring back joy and empathy in coding.
Yeah.
Because I think that will make for way better software, way better user experience, and way better developer experience, I think.
Yeah.
And I think it would also just take away some of the inflated hubris that sometimes for some it gets amplified to outsiders, that maybe this is what this world is like. I don't think it's for me. And going back to what you were talking about, the imposter syndrome, I think that's what also sadly surfaces the imposter syndrome. Like, oh wow, all of them are wearing hoodies and here I am wearing something sparkly. Am I really a dev or am I really a coder? Of course you are, so.
I wanted to follow that up because you decided to apply for this position, which I think is really interesting. And again, that kind of imposter syndrome that a lot of people kind of feel for, they hesitate, they don't pull that trigger, they don't grab onto that opportunity and take the chance. So tell me about that experience for you. Why did you decide I wanted to, I think I can do this in the support position? Yeah.
Well, it's a great question. Funny you asked that. So prior to PSF, I was working in brain research at University of Southern California, and also prior to that, I was actually teaching neuroscience lab, while also having my own little tech consultancy. I was learning. I'm always learning, always curious. So 6 months, I think 6 months before the PyPI Support Specialist role was posted, I was actually learning about PyPI from EuroPython, of all places. Yeah. I thought, oh, what's PyPI? Let me learn about PyPI.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. And so when I saw the position, I really applied on a lark. I did not expect to get interviewed, let alone hired for the position. So I thought, why not? I mean, let's see what happens. And I think 3 weeks later, I got interviewed by E. Durbin, Director of Infrastructure at PSF. And then I met with more PyPI admins, and here I am a year later.
Yeah.
So it was totally on a lark. I would say there were moments when I thought, wow, this role, even if it says support specialist, it's actually a lot more than that. That's what I've discovered being in this role. It's not it's definitely not a, quote unquote traditional tech support role.
Yeah.
It's so much more than that. It's a combination of DevRel. It's a combination of technical product. It's a combination of so many different things. And I think that in order to be successful in this role, you can't just code your way out of this role or in this role. You just can't.
You're going to have to interface with people and talk to them.
Yeah. And you also have to have creativity.
Yeah.
You also have to have creativity. You have to be able to approach this in a different way. And I think the fact that I have this diverse background and I worked in all these different places, different industries, I think that's what has also made me able to be successful in this role, because I wasn't just looking at the backlog from the perspective of a dev, or from the perspective of a product manager, or from the perspective of an infra person, or from the perspective of a tech support person.
Yeah.
I was looking at it from I like to call it looking through a kaleidoscope. When you turn, you see different angles and views, and I think that's what you need to be able to do to be successful in this role.
I think that's so interesting, because I'm definitely one of those people, I have this really weird mixed background of stuff, all these different jobs I have. And I am nervous to reach out sometimes in a similar way. Well, I am not the quote unquote typical whatever, but I feel like my diverse background is going to help with that as far as like my education, and also being unafraid to just do that. And also we discussed the whole idea of like, hey, you need to be comfortable asking questions, because there are a real subset of people that just like, they are like, I'll just take instructions or whatever, and they're not willing to like surface things up. It's like, I have an idea on this, and and willing to get the I don't knows, and then going beyond those barriers. So that's really cool.
I also forgot to add, I have a little bit of a rebellious streak in me. So I'm not always good at just getting instructions. I'm like, why do we need to follow these instructions? Let's make our own instructions. So
that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that really helps. That's awesome. All right. I always like to ask people when they come on the show a few questions. And the first one is, what are you excited about that's happening in the world of Python?
Oh, wow. Oh, my. Well, right now, I think by the time this airs, I'll be at EuroPython.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. I'm speaking there. I have never been to Prague, so I'm just excited to meet the EuroPython community and also talk about, my work and talk about the PSF to the EuroPython community. And so I'm just excited about that. Yes.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I know a handful of people that are going to be there. I've talked to recently, and they're all excited about it. And I know that I guess it would be the premiere sort of the Python documentary is going to happen. So if we get to watch that too, so that'll be fun.
That's news to me. So good.
Breaking news. Yeah,
breaking news.
Enjoy that. Yeah. I'm trying to get somebody on to discuss that a little bit more about the documentary itself. I'm hoping to get Travis on here to talk about it. But cool. So what's something that you want to learn next? Again, this does not have to be programming. It can be, but it could be anything that you're interested in learning next.
Ooh, good question. I'm always learning something. I mean, I've been trying to relearn how to read sheet music properly because I'm a musical person, but I'm play by ear. I learn music by ear way better than looking at sheet music. But I'm also interested in learning Pyramid. I believe that's the framework that PyPI was built on. So I'm interested in learning about that. And weather and course willing, I don't know why. Maybe it's the year we're living in, but I've been interested in learning wilderness survival courses because I'm not the most outdoorsy person. I mean, for me, I live in California. To me, outdoors is the beach and the ocean.
Sure.
But I know wilderness survival isn't just beach and the ocean.
Yeah.
So if an opportunity comes up, I'd love to do like a wilderness survival course, how to forage for what's around you. And so I guess a lot of different things that I'm interested in learning.
Yeah, no, it's fun. I'm definitely I have a laundry list of things I want to learn next. And they rotate. Back to the sheet music thing briefly. What instrument?
Oh, well, for both piano and guitar.
Okay.
Yeah. Mostly piano. I think I can't read tab to save my life, so I think sheet music is preferable to me than tab, but both for piano and guitar. Yes.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So the last question is, how can people follow what you do online? What's the best way that you would suggest people follow what you're doing?
It's funny you asked that question because maybe it's because I work in tech. You know how, quote unquote, the proverbial sausage is made. So I've kind of been anti-social media. So the only social media that I
completely understand.
So the only social media I have is my Instagram, which people really want, they can follow, but I don't have any, Blue Sky or X or Twitter or whatnot.
Yeah.
I do have my website, the travelingguitar.net.
Okay.
I will send you a link. And by the time this airs, there should be a blog post on PyPI's blog about the work that I did. But I generally I do not have a blog yet. I feel a little cringe tooting my own horn and tooting about my own work. So that's probably why I don't have it. But I have a website if people want to follow. And my GitHub and IG name is the same. It's Thespy Brain. If you search for it, it'll show up. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on the show, Maria. It's been really fantastic to talk to you.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
I want to say thanks to Maria for coming on the show this week. And I want to thank you for listening to the EuroPython podcast. Make sure that you click that follow button in your podcast player. And if you see a subscribe button somewhere, remember that the EuroPython podcast is free. If you like the show, please leave us a review. You can find show notes with links to all the topics we spoke about inside your podcast player or at realpython.com/podcast. And while you're there, you can leave us a question or a topic idea. I've been your host, Christopher Bailey, and I look forward to talking to you soon.